Hey there, Bitstocks family. It is Krista here from the marketing team. So before today's podcast, I'm going to run you through a short Gravity how-to. Remember, with Gravity, you can buy, sell, and store Bitcoin quickly and easily. So with the big moves happening in the market at the moment, you do not want to miss a good trading opportunity. Let's take a look at how you can use the price alerts feature on Gravity with these 3 simple steps. First of all, select your asset, scroll or swipe up, and click Create Price Alert. Next, use the up or down arrows or type in a number to set a price above or below the current market value that you want to be alerted to. And finally, hit Create Alert. It really is that simple. With your price alert set, Gravity will send you a notification via email as soon as your chosen amount is reached. So we hope you enjoy the podcast, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Bitstocks Podcast, a conversation that I'd imagine a couple of people have been hoping for and wanted to happen. I know definitely a couple of people at the firm, Bitstocks, have wanted us to get on and have a chat. So today I have none other than Daniel Krawisz. Is that the correct pronunciation of your surname, Daniel?
I think that if we were in Poland, it should be Krawisz. But that is you pronounced it the way that I pronounce it.
Nice. So it's Daniel Krawisz.
Yeah.
Welcome, Daniel. Welcome. Well, pleasure to have you on the Bitstocks Podcast, brother. I know that you have been a formidable figure in the space for some time. You're definitely someone who has cultivated a following around your opinions, and you're clearly a philosopher and a holistic thinker in this space as well, bro. So, but now you're building, right? You got some products out there. You're doing stuff. So, how are you, brother? Where do you want to start? Just welcome to the podcast. Where do you want to start?
Well, thank you for your kind words, and I'm happy to meet you too, and I'm glad we could get together.
For sure.
I was doing physics, and I got involved in the Austin startup community. And there was an event that I went to called 3-Day Startup, where it was just kind of like learning how to do startups.
How long ago was this, Daniel?
This was in 2009. And there I met Ross Ulbricht because he was also attending 3-Day Startup, and he told me about Bitcoin.
Interesting.
At this event, he gave a presentation on the Silk Road, which he was inventing around then. But he didn't tell us that it was going to be an illegal drug market. He just said, like, why don't we do this this Bitcoin marketplace thing? And that was his presentation. So he told us this was before the Silk Road opened. So he told us all about his idea. But
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you had definitely a different perspective on the whole Silk Road situation then, right? Because I guess you saw it before it even became a thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't know that that's what it was, and I didn't know that Ross Ulbricht was the Dread Pirate Roberts until later. And we had a conversation about Bitcoin, and he told me about it, and he wasn't able to explain it in a way that I could understand, because I was already very familiar with Austrian economics. So I asked him about the regression theorem, and he didn't have an answer for that. And at the time, Bitcoin did not have a price, so you couldn't really use it as money because it had no value.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about proof of work, so I didn't understand how it would be able to gain value. So what I said is that it wasn't going to work because there wasn't any reason for it to gain value. But later on it did, so then I wanted to get into Bitcoin because my objection to it had been met, and I didn't know how. But I thought that if it was going to start working, then it would get better and better as it got bigger. So you would want to get in as early as possible.
So when did it start fitting the model of, okay, this can be applied to an economic system? In fact, this is an economic innovation, and we can actually track and trace money on this system. When did you start having that realization, and how did that start to cultivate your thought processes moving forward?
Well, during the 2011 mania, that's kind of when I decided that Bitcoin was really important, and I wanted to learn everything about it. But I didn't know much then other than what I already knew from the Austrian theory of money, and I wasn't really good enough to understand much that was in the white paper. So I spent time from there learning cryptography, and I was doing a software engineering degree. So fortunately I had the opportunity to learn a lot of computer science then. Unfortunately, I did not prepare for the social attack that took place on Bitcoin, because I just thought everybody just wants to make Bitcoin better.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened, and I thought that there would be other people who would help fill in the gaps in my knowledge, but really there weren't very many other people. So I had kind of if you look back at my old articles, you can see that I understood a lot, but then I also missed some important things. And unfortunately, we didn't have a collaborative system back then.
Agreed.
Because people didn't understand. They didn't know what to do, and they all got fooled easily.
Well, it's very polarizing at that point as well, right? Even today, it's still polarizing, but I imagine less so, because back then you had all these different ideals, and I wasn't too dissimilar to you in the sense of I thought that everyone just wanted this to be better, right? Maybe that's a little bit too much faith in humanity and a direction and how humanity perceives the technology, and also maybe a misunderstanding as to how desperate certain people who benefit from the status quo will be to uphold and maintain that status quo. So I definitely fell into that trap myself, bro, with expecting a lot of these realizations as to what I was seeing to break through quicker, but then a feedback loop, right? Something you just mentioned there of not really having places to get clear answers as to what these evolving thought processes were in my head. But you mentioned physics and you mentioned economics, right? And computer science, and you've been at it 10 years. What's your Daniel of today understanding that I guess you probably would have loved to explain to Daniel 8 years ago or 9 years ago, 10 years ago? I mean, if we just zoom it straight up to today, where you at?
Well, I would have told myself to study law too. I'm just getting started on that.
Yeah.
So it would have been better if I had known that a lot earlier. But I thought economics and physics and computer science was going to be enough. There's going to be probably some other people who would understand other things.
Yeah.
And what you said about the status quo is so true. Yeah. So we had this industry that developed that was based on pumping coins, and the exchanges were making all of this money, and they didn't want anything to change that, even though if you never have a successful coin, of course, that's going to have to stop eventually. But
short-term thinking.
Yeah.
All right. Talk to me a bit about Boost. Okay. So Matterpool is one of your projects now, right? But what's the structure behind your entrepreneurial endeavor? So you started off with 10 years ago at effectively entrepreneurial workshop where you met Ross Ulbricht and hearing about Bitcoin. But now you're very much, you're building a company. I know you've got commerce going. I know Josh over at Twitch speaks incredibly favorably about you and what you guys are doing. Just bring us up to date on that, bro. What are you guys working on?
Well, Matterpool is a mining pool, and we only do BitcoinSV. And the idea of the business is that it's a mining pool plus whatever other sources of income we can think of. Because part of being a pool is to manage variance. So if you can if you can have something that's regular along with that, then that's better because you can manage more variance. So we've got the mining pool, and we've got a blockchain service, and we've got BitcoinFiles.org, and I've been working on Boost. And Boost is a protocol for buying proof of work from Bitcoin miners. So we encode a hash puzzle in Bitcoin script that is compatible with the proof of work algorithm that is already used in Bitcoin. So anything that a miner has for mining Bitcoin can be applied to this protocol immediately without changing anything. Although I didn't know enough about ASIC Boost when I came up with it, so I'm going to have to do a version 2 that has ASIC Boost in it. But so we don't have that yet. But other than that, it's the same as a Bitcoin hash puzzle.
So you're stacking on top of Bitcoin's effective network infrastructure, similar design inspiration. I guess what's the use case? What's the use case for providing a function like this?
Well, proof of work is a handicap, and a handicap is a provable waste, and handicaps are the only reliable signal of fitness that can be transmitted when there's a potential for deception. So if I wanted to signal to you that I'm fit, and you were concerned that I was going to lie about it, which everybody wants to make themselves look.
You show a demonstration as per, well, I guess, Animal Kingdom, right?
Yeah, so proof of work is like the peacock's tail.
Yeah.
And so basically anyone who wants to signal that they are fit can get proof of work whenever they want, and they don't need to have their own ASIC machines. So I think that there's many applications for signaling fitness. And so what I'm using Boost for is as an upvote system. So the reason we had a big problem in Bitcoin with our Bitcoin on Reddit being taken over by propaganda, and we've seen that social networks are open to these manipulation attacks.
Are they? I didn't notice that, Daniel. I didn't notice that.
Okay, well, don't worry. It's all
So
fine.
amazing. I thought Jack Dorsey was a great guy, and Mark. I thought they were pro free speech.
Yeah, right. One of the reasons that Reddit was taken over, or why it was vulnerable, is that the upvote on Reddit is meaningless, so it's easily gamed. So we can use proof of work as an upvote to make something that isn't easily gamed and which actually is meaningful. So we have when we use proof of work as an upvote system, the content that gets upvoted is more likely to be relevant. Yeah.
So the fit and proper test you're talking about.
Yeah. So the way so I have boostpow.com, and you can try this out now. So the way that I think people should use it is they should upvote information that makes society better when people read it. So they tell other people important information, and then they get to live in a better society. So that's how you benefit from it. So one thing that people have been bugging me about is they say, why would people use it? What is the benefit? Well, the benefit is that other people read good information if you can give it to them, and then you live in a better society. So to me, that's a good enough benefit. But
it's a great benefit. It all depends on the execution though, right? So naturally, I imagine I can see why you have a partnership with Twitch. right? Because that is very, very much part of Twitch's business model. But in order for this to be impactful at the level of scale that I imagine you'd want it to be, Daniel, what roadblocks do you see? Is there a question of different data schemas, different systems not communicating the same language? Is it something as easy of I'm building some form of social media website or some form of website that can benefit from this system? I just pull it in via API, and now I'm just utilizing your technology. But that's plugging into the overall data set of human beings interacting and upvoting technology that I can just pull into my application, but I'm bringing all that knowledge with it, right? So how do you see this playing out, and what's going to be required?
Well, I think that the biggest roadblock that I've had is finding somebody else who thinks that the idea is worth developing.
Okay.
So any Bitcoin mining pool could provide the Boost service. So I would like competition in providing the service, because right now, actually, the service is down, and I'm not really sure why. And it's been hard for me to find people who, want to develop the idea consistently. So while I've been working on it, we've had these long periods where it just hasn't worked, and I wasn't able to get it working.
What is the perception from miners in relation to this as a solution and technology? Is it something that you've had conversation with miners over and about?
I've had conversations with people at Matterpool, but no, I haven't spoken to other miners about it that I recall. But I was just kind of assuming that other people would want to provide the service, but so far it's been hard to convince people that there's money in it. To me, like, as long as we're not using it, we're still vulnerable to PSYOP and social control attacks. And the people in BSV are a lot smarter than the people on Reddit. But I think we are still vulnerable. I'm concerned about people not really seeing that problem.
Not to cut you off, brother, but I think I know exactly what your vibe is and where you're going with what it is that you're saying. Is I think that, and I've been subject to this myself, and I'm really consciously and mindful and trying to make sure that I don't fall into this trap again myself. I think the BSV space demonstrates that a high degree and a higher degree of intelligence can actually work against us, right? Seriously,
yeah.
Seriously, right? I really do think that we have demonstrated that, and I think we need to take a more basic human approach at understanding and be more mindful of what the herd thinking is. We can be critical as much as we like on our intellectual castles, but it's they are the masses, and we are tasked with building products for the masses.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's that big thing now of we need to lead by experience. And in fact, the last conversation I had, last podcast, was with Emma of Warping Media. She's a CEO of a VR company, AR company, a highly intelligent woman. But what's amazing about her business and her, I guess, philosophy to life is she can build it and allow people to experience it. The whole model is based on experience. And I feel like with the cryptocurrency space, we have yet to really start to experience. The only experience that we've done is sending money to and from exchange, and I've made money and I've made X, Y, and Z money, right? But when it comes to, I guess, guys and philosophers and women who have been really trying to innovate and create and say this is what the world can be like if we all plow towards in this direction and we build stuff that is very pro-humanity, this is what it can be like, where we have been lagging behind in terms of delivering what the world can be like in an experience. Right.
Okay. Well, so first of all, I really agree with you on improving humanity and pro humanity. So to me, money is about the other people. So like if we want to make Bitcoin go up, what we need to do is improve the other Bitcoiners. So I would like to see this, but the one thing I kind of disagreed with you on is I think that we should focus on each other. So on the other people who are already in BSV. And if we build a better economy for ourselves, then that will be something that will attract more people.
I agree.
That's how I think we do it anyway. But yeah, I think that we could be more pro humanity. And right now, people in BSV are doing way better than people were doing in Bitcoin before the splits, and it was all about whether we should even scale at all. Now people want to grow, but people have been talking a lot about tokens and things. But I think if we really want to talk about what it's really about, like what really matters, it's about the other Bitcoiners. So that's really what I would like to. I mean, that's what I think would pump Bitcoin, is if people just said, like, we do more to help each other.
I guess what is it about for you, Daniel? Like what's it about for you? I can kind of guess based on what you said as to what it started off with and how your interest got into it. But clearly you're a deep thinker. What's it about for you?
Well, to me, money is the real reason that we don't have a war of all against all. So, Thomas Hobbes said that in the state of nature, there's a war of all against all, and the sovereign prevents that. Well, but I think that the real reason we don't have a war of all against all is money. Because money creates a shared interest. And so it's better to focus on trying to get more money than on trying to kill each other. And so when we have money, we create something that's better than trying to exploit each other. We have a better option. So when we have a better money, we have a more cooperative society. And like the reason you hold cash is because you expect future goods that you're going to be able to buy. So the present value of money is the people who are going to produce those goods. And so what I say money is a way for a group of people to invest in each other. So there's a shared interest with money. And also, this is why it's so bad that people have been making all of these altcoins and pumping them for so long, because what happens then is we create opposing systems. We create groups of people that are all against each other. So there's a war of all against all between the different coins, and I don't think people were really thinking about that when they started making them. But like in the future, we could really see wars between different coins, and that wouldn't be very nice. It's a lot better if everybody just wants to use the same money from the beginning, and they kind of understand that money works because everybody else uses it. But it's too late for that.
So you say that money as an inclusive system, a way of allowing us to be more inclusive and communicative between one another, right?
Bitcoin enables people to derive more value from each other. And really, what could be better than that? That's like the best thing that we could have. So yeah, I would like the focus to be the human side. And I think to me, that's the message that would really pump Bitcoin. If people could see that they're going to be treated better. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, it's all about how it gets executed, right? Because I completely agree with what your notion is around money and the real concept of money. But where it becomes hazy is the execution, right? Because we have a system where we have private issuance and creation of money in exchange for government debt, which is interlinked with us. So you have this system where money is being created, and then they have the ability to then skew the price of creation, interest rates, etc. And then we have this very wishy-washy valuation of how we price human beings' productivity, which we call labor markets, all around the world. So we have these different frequencies. We have dominant ones, USD, GBP, Euro, Chinese yuan, and they fight in the way it is that you're describing, but at least we're kind of like, it's economic fighting, and you've got these big countries basically going for global dominance, right? And then we as human beings make decisions on which currency that we are going to accept. For instance, if you're an IT contractor earning $200,000 a year in the US, that's you pricing your input, your skill on an annual basis, which is a time reference, right? 200,000 PA per annum, the time reference, right? So if you then take that same skill set, do the exact same job, same contract, and you reposition yourself in Dubai, which is a zero tax jurisdiction, same input of time, but now you're getting a higher rate, a higher return, right? Bitcoin, what I find interesting about Bitcoin is that if at scale we get to this point where it is being accepted as a medium of exchange, okay, it can be an harmonizer of time and productivity. I see this being like quite far out, but that's what got me initially turned on the subject matter of Bitcoin and how Bitcoin can impact and affect what the exchange and the communication of money is between human beings and machines. There's something that you touched on there in relation to altcoins, right? Something that I've described in a different way in relation to altcoins, and going back to the whole, there's different frequencies and us needing one frequency, one way of measuring and pricing human being productivity on this planet without a new world order, one world government system, right? Which is important as well, right? Is what the true vision for me and Bitcoin is. However, in execution, again, what we have is this massive explosion of all of these different systems, all these different attempted means of value exchange. I see these ultimately as isolated universes, right? We have one universe, right? We get into all multidimensional and all the rest of it, but one universe. Now, what makes this amazing is, let's say, for instance, you and I can have very different opposing views, but we're within this construct and we can discuss those opposing views within the confines of the whole. It's all interconnected. And we say we call that what Bitcoin should have been and what Bitcoin can be at scale for the planet. But introducing all of these other little systems is an isolated universe. And then you look at these systems and you look at the amount of transactions that are happening on chain, and you realize that, yeah, cool, you're the creator of your universe, but it's lonely as hell because no one else is interacting with that universe, right? Yeah, how do you see these things, and just, yeah, elaborating and going from there, really?
Yeah, well, those are some really good metaphors for talking about these things. Yeah, it's really a struggle to convey the economic issues with each of these coins to people because, as we said, it's short-term thinking, and yeah, I mean, I think that many people I talk to act like they just don't believe economics is real, and that's because, I mean, economics is like a force that nobody can escape from, but it operates over a time scale that's a little bit beyond what most people are thinking. So they're acting like it's not real. And yeah, each of the coins is sort of like a separate cooperative system. And the people in it have this incentive to pay attention to each other because that's where the value is. The value of each of these coins is the other people in it. And so if they have this incentive to improve value, which means they have to pay attention to each other. So each of these coins is like a bubble and like a echo chamber, and you can kind of see that. You can kind of see that each of the coins has like a different personality. And if you talk to different people, like if you talk to different people in BTC, it seems like you're talking to the same person. It's really weird.
Let's do that. All right. So if you was to describe BTC as a personality, go for it. What's BTC as a personality?
The most annoying narcissist
all right,
that
cool.
you've ever seen.
Okay, that's BTC. Ethereum?
Ethereum, that's like somebody on some drug or something. Like somebody who's just really, really high, just going crazy.
So after you've read the Bitcoin white paper, done acid and MDMA, and you want to go on, ICO explosion, that's Ethereum.
But I don't know. I think acid and MDMA are. I think Ethereum is maybe a harder drug, maybe like cocaine or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I guess acid and MDA, you'll get a holistic connection at least, right? I think that would lead you more towards the Bitcoin side of things, where everything should be connected.
Yeah. BSV is more like MDMA.
Yeah. Literally, I think BSV is shrooms, DMT, maybe a little bit of San Pedro, keeps you grounded. Yeah. But as above, so below. So look, now we sound like a bunch of druggies, but
but this goes back to what you were saying about hurting our success by being too intelligent, because those kind of drugs appeal to they don't have quite as much of a mass appeal. Like there's some people who are really interested in psychedelics and benefit a lot from them, but they're just not for most people. Most people are not really into expanding their minds
Yeah. They will go for the whole Wall Street, cocaine, make money kind of approach thing, which ironically describes a lot of this crypto space. But I do, funny enough, looking at Bitcoin holistically, in fact, I think looking at anything holistically with a deeper connection as to who you are, who we are, nature as the true inspiration, allowed me to see Bitcoin clearer, allowed me to have new ideas and concepts around building technology around this system. Because I really took home that biological inspiration statement that Craig made all those years ago, and I took it very literally, and I looked for it, right? I really, really, really looked for it. And that just made me consistently look at Bitcoin in a very holistic way, but also, very importantly, who we are in that equation as well, the human aspect, the part that is not seen.
So what statement from Craig, do you remember, or can you paraphrase what it?
Yeah, so I think it was Arnhem. So when he first popped on the scene, he ripped the mic off John Matonis. John Matonis was doing a presentation. Then he came on stage, took the mic, started speaking about Bitcoin again, and said that Bitcoin is the world's first biologically inspired network. And I believe in that same talk, he also said for the first time that Bitcoin is the most centralized network. Well, that's the aspiration for it to be the most centralized network on a planet. And that was a very different concept. Even for me back then, 'cause I was still kind of tied into the whole decentralizes everything notion. And when Craig said those two things, it made me start looking at it all very, very differently. Very differently.
Yeah, okay. So I remember that. And I agree with taking that literally, because in nature we have systems that are sustainable. That's kind of how evolution works. Lots of animals die, and what we end up with is a bunch of animals who have who are following a strategy for survival. So I think that that's kind of that is what Bitcoin is, and of course it's an economic system. But I think that of course social evolution, that's also economics. It's just that it's broader than just humans. So and I've studied some of that as well. And
combine those two, Dan, because most people think those are quite separated things, right? Combine those two, especially in relation to Bitcoin, as to what the world looks like. How does the social construct of what we describe today as being human, how does it begin to start changing because we have a new way of lubricating money, right? Which is the ledger, Bitcoin.
I think that people are kind of like wolves. So in a wolf pack, there is an alpha pair, and they're the only ones who are allowed to have sex. So all of the other wolves need to get to the center before they're allowed to be creative. And to me, that's like a hierarchy. So I think humans have instincts to be hierarchical. And of course, a human hierarchy is more sophisticated than a wolf pack, but everybody's trying to get to the center. And any creativity that you're allowed to have in the hierarchy is delegated. It's given to you from above. Bitcoin is like a herd, or like a flock, or like a school of fish. So it's a system where everybody is trying to be creative at the same time. And there isn't anyone who has a monopoly on it, or there isn't some special position that you have to get to before you can be creative. It's just, everybody is doing it at the same time. And I think that's also what capitalism is like, but Bitcoin is an improvement on capitalism because of proof of work. So the proof of work is like antlers. And so capitalists before Bitcoin were like deer who didn't grow antlers yet. So before evolving antlers, that's what capitalism before Bitcoin.
And that in itself is a really interesting point there, because I'm super pro capitalism, right? But if we have a free market, and can we say that we have a free market? If we don't have a free market, then I will argue against that we have a capitalist society, right? I think it's what Bitcoin can bring and introduce is honesty, is integrity, that can actually allow an era of capitalism that we can be confident that we have a free market, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we haven't had. I think that we've had capitalists in the past, but we've had a mixture. So we've had some people who are trying to take control of everybody, and some people who are just trying to produce value for other people. So we haven't had pure capitalism in the past. We've had a mixture. Well, so this goes back to what I'm trying to do with Boost is I think that we've had a problem in the past with a false consciousness. So that's something that Marx came up with, and he said that the workers are supposed to be socialists, but they've been tricked into being capitalists. But I think it's really people who ought to be capitalists who have a false consciousness. So I think people get tricked into believing that a hierarchical control system is going to help them, and they're tricked because they have instincts. So they're kind of easily led into this idea. But they have a false consciousness because really they don't benefit, and they're better off in a free market system where everybody is trying to benefit each other at the same time instead of controlling each other. And when we use Boost, we won't have a false consciousness, because you lose energy too fast if you try to promote deception or misinformation with proof of work. So what we'll have when we use proof of work as an upvote system is a bunch of capitalists who are all aware of what their shared interest is and who aren't going to be misled by wolves. Well, right now what we have is like a domesticated herd where a bunch of wolves are trying to be the shepherds. So what we can have when people know their own interests better is we have a wild herd where people aren't trying to be shepherds anymore.
I'm gonna give a simple example. You could tell me if I'm on the pulse of this, right? So I'm a petrol head, very much known as such, love cars. However, my partner is not a petrol head, right? She likes cars basically because it's been forced upon her, right? She has to give an opinion so often that she's now start to actually build her own real opinion on cars. However, if I was to task my partner to go down to a car dealership and acquire her own vehicle without any input from me, that would be a very daunting experience for her. Then she'll be subject to the salesman like a sheep walking into a lion's den, right? So if she goes and speaks to that salesman and says, okay, like I've got a budget, £30,000 for a car. Is this a good car for me? What answer is she going to get?
Well, yeah, of course. He's going to say, he's going to pick the most expensive one and say, this is the one that you need.
Yeah. In the real world, basically, what it is that you're talking about is a system of integrity, basically, that gives a review of this car based on her input, what she needs in her circumstance, and then she can have an honest feedback system that says, okay, this car's right for you, this car's right for you, this one's not right for you, etc., etc. But because we have systems out there, like we have review sites, we have awards that happen annually with car magazines, etc. We have all of these things, but you still kind of have some variant of that sentiment, right? You're a salesman and you're selling me something, or you have arrangements with these car manufacturers, which is why you do your end of year car review, right? What car, this is the best car for this category, end of year review. But with what you're saying, you use the herd, right? And the feedback from the herd, which is actual real ownership experience, to then allow someone such as my partner who's clueless on this subject matter, who could then, I guess, just go into the dealership of choice with understanding that she should be now buying the right vehicle for her because she can trust the data set more.
Exactly, yeah. And user reviews, that's something that's can be manipulated. I don't trust user reviews very much now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that I think that cheap talk is the big problem with our society right now. Well, and it has been for a long time, but it's got worse with the internet because we have so much more information that we can make now. It's like talk has become cheaper. And this is what has enabled these problems that we're having now, where we have these systems of mass manipulation, where people are being controlled with fear and propaganda. If we get rid of cheap talk, then that just doesn't work anymore. And the only people who can afford to talk are the ones who actually have something good to say. If you want to be a scam artist, part of that is wading through tons and tons of people. Well, just think about how spam works. Like if you're a spammer, you try to send emails to thousands or millions of people, but only a tiny fraction will respond. So that's why you need the volume just to find a small fraction that are going to respond to your spam ad. So with proof of work, that just becomes unviable, and you need to resort to offers that are more likely to be accepted. So if then that just means you need to have a good offer instead of a bad offer.
So run me through the incentives, the economics, as to how it fits into the miners. That's still a disconnect for me right now. So I understand why I'll utilize your service to run a more unique variant of computation for me, right? But obviously I'm utilizing Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin because of the network and the security aspect of having something stamped against the public ledger. But you're kind of providing the system on top of the base system, right? So just run me through how the security model tags in and the economic side of it tags in. And is there anything in terms of block lag that I need to be concerned about? Because if you're doing something for me and you agree it, but then when does it get into the blockchain, or is that not as big of a concern? Just run me through that aspect, if you don't mind.
Well, I think with Boost, you can just regard Bitcoin as the money system, and you don't really have to worry about how it works internally. And so the way it works is you make one transaction that has the hash puzzle in it, and then anyone who sees that transaction who has the hashing equipment can redeem it. And so you basically send your Boost transaction out into the network, and if there's enough money in the output, then some miner will want to redeem it. Presumably, that was the idea, but right now we're the only ones doing that.
So basically, you're packaging something and it's out there, and it's up to a miner because they already know, oh, I'm compatible with what Boost is doing anyway. And if I want to take it, pair it, then I get what these guys have put forward to me as a reward, right?
Yeah, and you just have to offer something better than what that miner's earning from mining blocks.
Yeah, because that's a miner's product right now is producing blocks, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we go to miners. I'll sell you blocks, basically, and that's their thing. But now what you're saying is, I can give you some other things that are incentive. If it's appealing, which I think it should be appealing, come and choose some of this action, right? And what you're saying is you want to build an ecology around service providers doing lots of these things. So then miners now aren't just, my product is a block. Now it's, these are really interesting. These are really interesting. This is making me some additional cash.
Yeah,
right?
So there's just more applications to proof of work than Bitcoin mining. And so far, I mean, I think that there's kind of a lot. I mean, as I said, it's for signaling fitness.
Yeah.
And right now we have this global world where people just don't know each other. People only know a tiny fraction of the other people. So there's a really big need for people to see who is good, like who is worth interacting with without knowing that person. And right now we rely on things that can just be faked and manipulated. Like we can say somebody has a good reputation, but you can fake that. Like if you're talking about somebody on the other side of the planet, they can fake having a good reputation. And right now we have all of these organizations that only exist to exploit people, as far as I'm concerned. And everybody's been indoctrinated to believe that they are there for their best interest. And this is something that we can improve if we use proof of work correctly, because then we will have people who if you have to gain back what you've lost with proof of work, you have to be good, and that's really your only choice. Yeah. And if you don't believe that, any viewer, I would encourage you to read The Handicap Principle by Zahavi and look into subsequent work on this idea, because it's very important, and there's a really big need for it in the world now. And so far it's been I just think there's a really big danger, and there's quite an easy solution that it's based on economics. So people have trouble believing that it's real. But I mean, I think that if you go through the cost benefit analysis, you can see that it is real.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're coming towards the end of the podcast now. But one is, I know we're surface dwelling, I should say. It'd be nice to have another chat and go a little bit deeper, but just to maybe tee up where that conversation could go the next time you come on the podcast. The world in 5 years and 10 years, because Bitcoin, the collective efforts of SV, in the truest sense of where it can go, in your most optimistic mind, where is it in the next 5-10 years? And with your pessimistic mind, where is it in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, well, I mean, right now we've got a good versus evil thing going on in the world.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
Bitcoin is based on relying on each other. So it's a group of people who all have a need to make each other better.
Contributionism.
And the rest of the world is built on it's built on exploitation, and the systems that run everything are like farmers with domestic animals. So the farmers have to keep animals alive up to a point.
That's an unfortunately very accurate depiction.
Yeah, ultimately the value, the way the animals are treated are based on what the farmer can get out of them. And in Bitcoin, everybody wants everyone else to be successful, or at least that's what they would want if they were really thinking about the bottom line. You know what I mean? If they were thinking about what's going to make Bitcoin go up, they would think, well, I want everyone else to be successful. This is why I say that Bitcoin is like a black hole, because there's this synergy, and it gets stronger with more people. So as more people get in, that's more value that we can derive from each other, because that's more specialization and division of labor. And that's like the black hole getting heavier as more matter falls into it. And eventually it will be impossible for anyone to avoid Bitcoin, because you can't avoid value. It's just stupid to do so. It's kind of like, why would you want to do something in a more difficult way than necessary?
When you say Bitcoin's a black hole, you're talking about in terms of there's so much innovation, application boom, business boom, use cases, that the world starts to utilize Bitcoin, and our machines start to utilize Bitcoin like oxygen, air. It's becoming an integrated part of being human, right? Our systems are becoming more and more reliant on utilizing this truth ledger in order to start building our infrastructure on top of. And by value proposition, you're talking about the requirement to run that state, so being the tokens themselves.
Well, no, value, I just mean like how valuable is a Bitcoin going to be? Like what is it going to be able to buy in the future? And the value now is like what is the future potential? It's that, like, the difference between what you can buy with a Bitcoin now versus what you will be able to buy with it in the future. And ultimately, people won't want to avoid Bitcoin because it'll be a better economy. And it's kind of like, why would you want to be in a shitty economy when you could be in a good one? You know what I mean? It's like, that's avoiding value. You want to be in the slums when you could be in
Yeah, the
You
palace.
could be in right. Yeah, that's kind of like what's going to happen with Bitcoin.
So within that time frame, then, so 5 years, when you say Bitcoin, so Bitcoin right now, what we will identify as being Bitcoin is $200, right? But the public perception of what is Bitcoin is $50,000. So in 5 years, are you saying that the real Bitcoin, as per the white paper, Satoshi Nakamoto, BitcoinSV, Satoshi's vision, where is that priced in 5 years, and does the world start to acknowledge its value within that time frame?
Well, I don't want to make price predictions because those are always embarrassing. But I mean, the value of money is the other people. So the more people who get in, the more valuable the money is, and that's not just pumping the price. It's just really better when there's more people. And BTC is not like that because BTC can't be used as money. So in the people in BTC don't have the ability to benefit each other. All they're doing is they're acting together to talk about being amazing and great when they're really not, when they really have nothing.
What do you think about Elon Musk? Like, Elon Musk is a highly intelligent individual. For him to be pushing and promoting Bitcoin, or 2 and 2 doesn't equal Jello pudding, but all I'm getting is Jello pudding. So what's going on there?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what his real agenda is, but I would disagree with you on Musk being intelligent. I would say
so?
he has done.
Why?
He's had some really silly ideas in the past. So he's been trying to do this hyperloop thing, and he's been talking about commercial rocketry that it's going to send people around the globe instead of using airlines, or airplanes. So I think that these ideas are not really going to work. And I think that Tesla wouldn't really be a thing if it wasn't for special treatment from the government.
Oh yeah, the loan from Obama was ridiculous.
Yeah, but on the other hand, maybe he does have some secret plan. I don't know what it is, but
I think Elon is very on pulse and is involved in some interesting things behind the scenes that dictates and governs his public actions. There's no way he's launching rockets in space and doesn't know way more than what he's articulating publicly. And also the notion of going to Mars on rocket technology is effing retarded. You blow a hole in our ozone layer before you get anything meaningful if you're doing that frequent flights with that technology. There's a lot of holes in what he says publicly. And then when you actually have a decent understanding of physics, which clearly is something that you studied, the conundrum that's in front of him in relation to Bitcoin is really basic, right? You're talking about a system that does 3 to 4 transactions a second, let's say at scale, 350,000 transactions a day, 7+ billion people, which you're very aware of because you're talking about colonizing Mars because of overpopulation problem, right? So you definitely know how many people are on this planet. And for you to know how many transactions Bitcoin processes per day and then saying, does 350,000 equate to servicing the global needs at present? This is what I mean. 2 and 2, he's coming out with Jello pudding. And that makes me really, really, for one degree, quite bullish on BSV, weirdly, but not in the way that people would think. More so that it seems like there's such a desperate push by the mainstream right now that even Elon is involved in, that seems to be very desperate to keep this music, this final song. I think we're on the final couple of tracks of the Bitcoin BTC album.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. I like that the music metaphor. Yeah. It's like the Pied Piper.
Yeah, and I really see him as being the one who's really championing that. Obviously, Michael Saylor, a couple other people as well. But I really see it as potentially being the last dance. But I just can't work out why. Why would Elon need to get involved and do that?
I'm the wrong person to ask. Yeah, interesting question, but I'm not. I don't like speculating on what's in other people's minds. I don't think. I don't know.
Yeah. No, just spitballing there. So 10 years, Daniel. 10 years.
So anyway, well, pessimism versus optimism. I mean, I think that it feels like we had a communist takeover, just like we had in BTC, except over the whole world. So at least back in BTC, you could sell out, but right now there isn't a way to sell out. So
that thought process goes back to Elon. The only way to sell out is go to Mars, right? That's if you can do it.
Yeah, right.
Like,
yeah.
I'd check out.
Yeah, we can sell out to Mars. Yeah. I really am looking forward to a reality check, something that will crash the global markets, and I mean, I think, yeah, we're in kind of like everything is in a bubble now, but it's a really sinister kind of bubble. It's not doesn't feel like a very happy bubble like some earlier bubbles we had where everybody's manic. It feels like a terrifying bubble because there's all this.
Well, we've had an overreach of government power, right? And historically, we also don't have a relinquishing of that reach. Once government establishes further power, I don't know, by all means, anyone in the comments go for it by correcting me on this. I don't recall many events and times where the governments hand that power back over to the population once they've claimed it. And I think we're going through that globally, which would then tie up with, I'll say, a new high in mistrust, at least in my lifetime on this planet and this existence in government, at a time also now we're printing money like it's going out of fashion. So we really are in this awkward time on the planet, which I refer to as being, we're not the caterpillar, and
awkward time.
Yeah, we're most certainly not the butterfly right now either. So we're that awkward in between stage where I'm optimistic we will break through and become a butterfly. But what I'm always curious about, which is why I like asking the question, is what other people think will tip us more towards that direction, as opposed to the quite easy to see negative direction, which is being rolled out in front of us, which I'm not fully subscribed that we're going to be following that path. But I do think there are certain industries. R1 is a huge one with Bitcoin, the true promise of what Bitcoin can be to the world as a beacon of light, a purification of many other systems and technologies in order to start allowing humanity to not only have a voice, but if we do manage to have an event where we purge and we clean and cleanse monetary, political systems, that the light stays on. I saw you just ruffling a book there that had a relatively interesting front cover. I only got a snippet of it. What's that you had in your hand?
Oh, this is my old classical mechanics book from graduate school. But I don't think it's...
That looks like cymatics on the front. Is that cymatics?
No, it's classical dynamics. So it's basically it's like orbital mechanics, like that kind of things. It's like interacting bodies with a finite number of degrees of freedom. Anyway, I'm glad you're so optimistic, and I mean, I would say that what you say you've been looking for is something that's going to push us in the pro-freedom direction. Well, that's what I've been working on, because with proof of work as an upvote system, then we don't have a false consciousness anymore. So I think the ideas of freedom are going to win out in the kind of system that I'm making, and they do not win out in the kinds of systems that everybody relies on right now.
And the way that you would like to package your offering, how do you envision people using your tech, and how much easier, more frictionless would you like to see that become over the next year or 2 years?
Well, I would really like to see some competition in Boost, because I could use some help.
Okay.
And if you compete to provide the service, then you help me because I can use it. I made Boost because I wanted to use it, but I also have to provide it now so that I can use it. I just have always had this problem in Bitcoin when I've tried to talk to people about economics, and there is always something else that is distracting people. And they're all trying to get rich. I mean, there's always some kind of new fad or trend that people are focused on.
Yeah, but on that though, Dan, this is where we need to make a difference, but also where profit doesn't need to be dirty, doesn't need to be a dirty word.
Right.
Like it's getting rich, getting wealthy is freaking amazing. Being sovereign is amazing. Allowing your bank balance to match your state of consciousness is fulfillment, right? Your state of desire.
Well, yeah, no, I agree, and I think economics is the best way to get rich in Bitcoin. But I think that I've had a lot of trouble talking to people about it. I just think that I believe that economics is real, and I take it really seriously, and I just feel like I've had a hard time finding other people who believe that it's real to the same degree that I have. So I feel like I'm kind of like someone who has been floating in a bubbling fluid in where everything is turbulent, and it's been hard to find something to hold on to. I just think we don't need that. Things don't need to be like that. If people were really thinking ahead about economics, they wouldn't be going crazy. They would be pursuing a careful strategy that plays out over years, and they wouldn't. I don't know. I mean, it just seems.
Well,
it's
to be honest with you, Daniel, like if that wasn't there, the opportunity to you as a young entrepreneur building in this technology will also not be there, because most people like to outsource their thinking. Period. It doesn't matter if we buck that trend, if we take ownership in our own educational pursuit, and we utilize our own discernment. Great, that's great for us. But what we are tasked to do with that is to then build tools that enable others economically and otherwise. And the more it is that I've delved into my own, say, spiritual journey, and also communicating and interacting with people on a spiritual journey, I've actually really identified the things that I do not want to associate myself with that comes in this very spiritual community. And a lot of that is a little bit too much time tree hugging, and being a bit wishful in our desires for the world. And the one aspect that I'm very glad has remained not only an integral part in my character, but also a wildfire that continues to rage and burn, is the requirement to earn money, to earn real income, to make real impacts. Because through experience and through example, that's where I can see real change happening. And we need to basically build tools and be almost, I'm not going to use the word burden because it's a negative word, but challenged with sight. Once you achieve sight and clarity and understanding as to a good idea as to how the world works and how you fit in it and how you work even, and then view our fellow human beings as to their level of understanding as to who they are, the fact is that this is the conditions in which the societal construct that we live in, we can speak on why they're there for hours on end, and we'll probably agree on most of those points. But ultimately, it's been executed so well and it's indoctrinated people so well that, in my opinion, people like you and me who can have a really good philosophical conversation about what needs to be done, what our biggest challenge is we need to build stuff that allows the people to wake up through experience, right? Let's build tools that makes these people money. That's what's going to get their attention. But the user experience needs to be seamless, that it's not nerdy as well, though, Daniel. And I think that's what we haven't really achieved too well in the last 12 years. That I think is the next stage for us in SV in particular.
Okay, well, yeah, great stuff there. And so those are some that's a hard look at reality. And you're certainly focusing on some things that I've struggled with. I've always had a lot of trouble understanding other people. I think that when you say about tree hugging and excessive idealization, I think Bitcoin has certainly opened my eyes up to some dark things in other people that I wasn't so aware of before.
Yeah,
and I'm still struggling to understand humanity. So
You're most certainly not alone in that.
I hope that I'm not coming off as someone who's just an idealist.
No, definitely not.
I hope I'm someone who can continue to learn more about people. But right now I'm still pretty confused by them. But I've made a lot of progress.
But that in itself is progress, right? That's incredibly. That's a very humbling statement to make, and also a very advanced statement to make when anyone acknowledges their journey of self-mastery. Is the one thing I know is that I know nothing, right? that's the one thing I can say confidently, is that the one thing that I know is that I know nothing, and that's always going to be a constant state. And for me, I guess that's the joy from always knowing that I'm going to keep learning. Even 1,000 years, million years, I'm still going to keep learning. But I think what's really interesting to what it is that you're doing is you are and have been known and identified clearly as a philosopher and obviously self-proclaimed emperor of Bitcoin, but you're actually building real products as well. And I think with Boost and projects like Boost, I would love to see really the world take traction to it. But things like this, and this is actually a similar thing to what Lucas was speaking about actually on the Project and podcast. He made a really strong statement around schemas, data schemas, and he thinks the problem in the Bitcoin and blockchain world is worse in terms of data management and then having systems that communicate with other systems. So these types of conversations, and also what you're saying, effectively like people working together, having a system of contributionism, people who are building tech in this space really do need to have that open discourse to make sure that we have interoperability of our ideas, because Boost shouldn't really be something that you just view or utilize in one place like Twitch. It should be across multiple different platforms, right?
Yeah, well, so first of all, I really agree with you on interoperability of ideas, and that's what money is all about. It's about specialization and the division of labor. So everybody ought to be focusing on what they're best at, and that means other people need to be doing things for each other.
Yeah.
And right now in Bitcoin we have a really big problem with a labor shortage, I would say.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of people who have we have a lot of like idea people. And but it's been a struggle for me to just kind of get things to work because there's relatively few
I agree on that,
people,
bro.
I mean, like most of the programmers in Bitcoin got fooled and they went over to BTC, so it's like they've all been nullified. And we have a really big need for people who can program in BSV, and it's just not as it's just kind of like right now everybody needs to know everything, and that's not sustainable. Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew how to attract more developers. And as you were saying, like about designers, of course, as well. But we need programmers first, I think, because there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't even work right now.
Yeah.
I think there's a really big need for better wallets, for example. I mean, all of the wallets are gradually getting better, but I think we need a lot more, and I think we need basic functionality before we need a great user interface, and it would be great if we could get both. But yeah, right now there's relatively few people with the ability to build a wallet. Anyway, I don't know what my solution to this problem is, but I mean, certainly what you said, earning income would be a good solution, because then some of these skills can be hired.
I agree with the overall sentiment, right? For me, the resounding word to take away really is contributionism, right? We're in this together. We need to understand that actually brings more value to us individually. So even like the whole notion really of, I think competition and the way competition is kind of perceived is needs to update when coming to the Bitcoin world and how people are building. Like for instance, with us, we're building to be interoperable. We're building to have partnerships. We're building to have partnerships with things that we can't even envision or imagine. We just know that we need to build in a way that the man on the street and the woman on the street can use without a nerdy explanation. But then the nerds can then say, "Can I have your API kit?" Right?
Yeah.
And then they could go ham on it. So.
Well, let me quick say something on that, because I think that we do have. I think we have things that are quite easy for people to use and do basic things with Bitcoin, but I think that there's a really big hurdle to overcome with prejudice against Bitcoin. And we can blame the rest of the market because, many people outside of Bitcoin are aware that everything in the crypto markets is a complete scam. Not that they know everything about it, but it's just kind of obvious if you look at most of the people. But this problem has existed since the beginning of Bitcoin, since I've been involved in it. Before everything turned into a scam, people were very prejudiced against Bitcoin. And I think that this has to do with what they grew up with. And, we've been talking about indoctrination and the control systems. Well, people grow up with that kind of stuff. And Bitcoin is like offering people freedom. So I think that there's, beyond just the user interface and something that regular people can understand how to use, I think that there's a really big mental problem to get over. Dude, with Bitcoin.
Yeah, and you wouldn't believe it. Almost in comparison to the Matrix.
I've talked to people who are friends of mine outside of Bitcoin for months before they would even install an app and let me give them Bitcoin for free. You know what I mean? And it's like they are. It's hard for me to understand what the problem is, because it's so easy to install one of the wallets we have now, and it takes, you just send me your address and we have PayMail now, so that's even easier.
Yeah, but there you go. You got address, PayMail, wallets. These are new acronyms, Daniel. Right? These are new ways of describing. This is unique to us. As I say,
it's really easy.
To you, dude. To you, you're an intelligent dude operating in the Bitcoin world.
Okay, well, how would you make it easier?
We just got send and receive. We need to stop reinventing words that are unique for our space. Like even the term blockchain, I don't like it. Like just get rid of these things. Like no one freaking cares. They just want to know that, okay, a ledger has been around for thousands of years, and they want to know that you can't fuck around with that ledger, right?
Yeah.
So
I totally agree with that. I mean, the blockchain, that's like a magic buzzword that people use to.
Yeah. But it's like with PayMail, like we get how it works, right? But it's just a handle, right? People know that on Twitter, they know that on Instagram, like that stuff, that terminology has been out there. I just think we need to, this is my opinion, not invent all these new words and terms that are really unique for us. Because I assure you, we're just creating new hurdles and barriers of things that I'm gonna have to explain to my mum before she can use my Gravity app. I just really want to stay away from that. I'll tell you who's got an amazing philosophy with this and execution in his business is Alex and Rafa over at Handcash. The way that they're designing their SDK, etc. And I think they want to do some stuff soon where you just don't need any Bitcoin knowledge. They want developers with zero Bitcoin knowledge to start building applications and build stuff. And I do think that's the right approach. In order to start really like chipping down the hurdles. Yeah,
well, being a good teacher is that's very much in the spirit that we've been talking about, because that's about empathy, and it's hard to imagine another person who doesn't have your knowledge.
Yeah,
but that's a really important skill.
Yeah, totally. Well, Daniel, my brother, it has been a pleasure. And I know we've gone over, but we're still, for the most part, surface dwelling. I'd love to have you back on the podcast later on where we could just maybe hash out, maybe have a couple of other people on, do a little bit of a group sesh. We could go into things in a little bit more detail. Is there any last resounding words or things that you want? So just sound bites so people could find you, Daniel, and your work?
Well, I'm user24 on Twitch. Go talk to me there, and check out BitcoinFiles.org. And Gravity is a great name. So remember, Bitcoin is a black hole. So maybe and I would love to come back on too. Maybe we could talk about general relativity, and we could go over. What it's like to fall into a black hole.
Because that right there is not an empty space. People think it is. That's right there is not empty space. That's fully connected. That is the division of the number 9. Keep on going until you reach a singularity. So, dude, that's definitely a conversation we can extend upon in our next round out. I'd love to do that.
Okay, well, great. And thank you. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you, brother. All right. Well, Daniel, thank you very much. So that's another episode in the Bitstocks Podcast Bank. I think the next time we have none other than Josh Petty on the show, which would be quite a nice segue from this conversation, Daniel. And with that being said, peace, love, and light. All the best, guys. Take care.